thank you for the opportunity to address this. I'm also the person who made that request to which Mr. Watler was referring. I wanted to talk about how this bill could affect news organizations gathering in what I think are important stories. It would prevent, and I think that's a bad move and would prevent significant stories from being done. And I will talk a little bit about those stories. Media in Texas would not have been able to sound the alarm on many of the issues going on with the Texas if this bill had been the current law. One of the many stories we did identical convictions or deferred adjudications, and we not only found more than half of those inmates and those employees with criminal records were much more likely to have abuse allegations filed against them. Without that, we wouldn't be able to do those stories. Another story where reporters in 2006 looked at school district employees with criminal records. They found 80 DISD employees with misdemeanors on their records, many misdemeanors which were supposed to prevent them. And in none of these cases, I just want to point out, did the morning news distribute the employee data to run the birth dates in about the right people, that the people we match in criminal records are the right people. With all due respect, there are with criminal records in Texas, James Michael Jackson's more mundane tasks, but important tasks such as verifying someone's age. We've used this to verify that truck drivers for the state are actually that meet the age requirement to have a truck. So not having this information would really prevent us from doing a lot of important stories. Thank you.
Are you telling me that, like, the TV good job with that, that you could not have done those stories without birth?
Many of those stories, yes, because we couldn't verify who the people we were writing about were.
Other source of information? I mean,
for doing the kinds of math analyses that we did, no.
What? And I don't want this to sound. I'm going to ask it. I don't mean it to sound the way it does, but do you not consider the privacy and identity theft? I mean, are you saying?
I am not belittling the notion of identity theft, but I'm for someone's name and date of birth, their identity has been stolen.
Okay, so you don't think that's a factor?
I think it's a problem, but I think you probably need more information. I think Mr. Ellis is going to address some more of that issue.
Okay. Then does that mean you want Mr. Ellis to speak next?
Sure.
Okay. Mr. Ellis.
Broadcasters and my employing organization, which is KDFW Fox 4 News in Dallas. I'm a investigative news producer. Thank you very much for the opportunity for us all to be heard here today. This is a crucial issue, and it should be considered with extreme caution and urgent care to journalism and public awareness. It has nothing to do with whether or not journalists or the members of the public like or dislike public employees, as this gentleman next to me indicated. It has nothing to do with who our tax dollars go to, and we have to be able to different things out there. So the date of birth is an important identifying tool. I would like for someone to cite some specific cases where their identity was stolen as a result of a public information request that can come forward with that exact situation. I also heard this gentleman to my left say that all the experts agree that this would contribute to identity theft. Name and date of birth, from what I'm told from experts in our area, but in particular one I have documented from an email yesterday. His name is Mr. Danny Deppenbaugh. He is a 33-year veteran of the FBI, a former special agent in charge in the Chicago region. He is now a private consultant in the Dallas area, and he worked in the Dallas office for quite a while. I asked him the simple question, is name and date of birth enough for someone to steal someone's identity? And let me just read you this. Short answer is that they usually like the Social Security number along. We have those, then they can create the identity and apply for credit cards. Name and date of birth is not enough. They want to get a viable use, like stealing the mail at the house and applying with credit card company. Theft, where the theft of money is the focus, they will need and want the financial information along with the date of birth, full name and Social Security number. And he goes on to say some other things. But anyway, officers and teaches on the topic of identity theft. I would certainly consider this man to be an expert. I will gladly submit this email to the committee along with his bio from his webpage. And hopefully you'll accept that as an expert opinion that has been cited to this committee and not just someone saying, hey, experts agree, or, this is possible. Name and date of birth is not consulted with.
Okay.
Now, if I may continue a little bit.
Your time's up, actually, as of... Okay, sorry. Let's see, who hasn't testified? A gentleman... Well, okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, it doesn't... Yeah, go ahead.
My name is Ryan McNeill. I'm from the Dallas McNeill.
Okay, Brian, I didn't call you yet, but you're welcome. Go on.
I'm a journalist who specializes in database analysis. They're absolutely the most important device we have for differentiating people. If we compare, for example, if we compare the database of a low convicted felons, the only unique identifier we have is date of birth. Take this away and the public will have no way of truly knowing whether the convicted felon is indeed the same person. One of the most well-known studies into identity theft, a Federal Trade Commission report that's cited on the comptroller's website, never ever cites date of birth from public records, or any public records for that matter, as a source of identity theft. Recently, the Washington Attorney General Rob McKenna, a Republican, told the mayor of Seattle he refused to back the city's efforts to get the legislature to shut down access to dates of birth and public records for the exact reason I've cited. He referenced separate 2006 research that showed that dates of birth and public records were against identity theft. And quoting from him, instead, the study found that most identity personal information thief is the victim's friend or family member, a significant source of identity theft, and publicly available dates of birth have not been cited. The Attorney General also pointed out that dates of birth for all citizens are already widely available from multiple sources. Voter rolls in Washington have dates of interest to protect because of that, and such a move would in fact treat public employees differently than regular citizens. The press's ability to serve as a watchdog of public government. Let me give you a few simple examples. Without dates of birth, we wouldn't be able to examine whether criminals are teaching your children, whether your children's bus drivers are criminals, whether the most vulnerable senior citizens or the mentally ill are interacting with criminals. In Oklahoma, I experienced a real-world example of the implications of this bill becoming law. At another newspaper, we believe that a state institution charged with handling the foster system, senior citizens, and the mentally ill with nominal background checks on their employees. This was an agency riddled with troubles and now facing a civil rights lawsuit. Children had died under privacy concerns. We had indications that they weren't doing the background checks. I compared a database of first, middle, and last names against our state court system and got an update to birth. We couldn't narrow the results down. We couldn't prove who was who. Because of that, I can tell you that story sat on the shelf and it never ran. It's possible nothing has changed in that agency. Bad people are possibly working with the most vulnerable because the story never ran.
Thank you.